welcome back to a very special Sunday episode of the Goal Line Stand podcast. And when you have a special episode, you got to bring in special people to do it. So me and Coby today are joined by our friends over at the T&T Podcast, Tyler and Torrez. How are you guys doing?
Great. Can't complain, man. It's college football season. It's time to go, man.
Yes, sir. Happy to be here, man. Thank y'all for giving us an opportunity.
And for all my Georgia Tech followers out there, I apologize for that man in the bottom left corner. Like I can't control it. So just, it's just, I didn't ask him to do that. He just does it on his own. So
that's right.
But Coby, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. I got to tune into some football yesterday, watched a little bit of the Notre Dame Navy game, caught a little bit of flicks from the USC game. It's back, baby. I already can't wait for this coming weekend.
We are here to talk playoff and Heisman picks. And, if you just based it off yesterday, we would have a playoff, I guess Notre Dame, USC, UMass, and maybe San Diego State, I guess, if you want to argue about number 4. So that's the field right now. But we're going to talk about the field at the end of the season, and we're going to kind of just jump right into that. You can go back and look at every episode me and Coby have done up to this point. We have talked about every Power 5 team. We told you what we thought, overrated, underrated. And now we're here to put it in ink now. This is our final picks. I'm sure we'll all be correct, and I'm sure there's not going to be any argument whatsoever here. But I guess the best way to start this show off is just talk about contenders, whether it's dark horse contenders, whether it's favorites. Like, who do we think are like legitimate contenders for the playoff? And I guess as guests of the show, I'll let Torrez go first since he's not wearing a Georgia jersey.
Well, I think the contenders are sometimes pretty obvious. I mean, why not the defending national champions? Thank you, Tyler. I love loving the jersey. Two-time defending national champion, University of Georgia. For sure, man. I feel like the University of Georgia is the leading favorite, and then behind them, a team that's been known around as the country's best is Alabama. You got Alabama right behind them. And then, you got a lot of other teams that I feel like going to be on the rise a little bit. A lot of people are predicting LSU, to be right there, potentially win the SC West. So I feel like I got LSU right there, Ohio State with Big Ten, them in Michigan right there, always in the mix. And if I want to go ACC, usually the lead front runner is Clemson. But I think Clemson got a few questions this year. So you could switch that over to maybe potentially Florida State. So, you got Florida State right there. And then obviously in the Pac-12, you got USC, who we just saw, Oregon. So there's a few teams there and maybe Texas. So I always got to throw them out there.
Tyler, what about you?
He's pretty much laid it out right there. Y'all know who we're going to pick if we're going to be picking them, automatically number 1 there, but Georgia. I've gone on record, and we can talk about that here in a minute. I've got similar thoughts as Jackson on some of these teams here. So some of them won't be making my predictions here in a little bit, just due to how I've kind of drawn out the season. I do think that we're going to see some kind of fresh blood in the mix. We could see another Big 12 appearance, like last year with TCU. We could see, like you guys, like Torrez was just mentioning, a Pac-12 appearance. You can't count on Oregon, can't count on USC with how they looked last night. They do have some question marks, but given the circumstances and the schedule that they have to go up against, and if they're able to win games, it's hard to discredit them. So I'm willing. I'm going to sit back here tonight. I want to hear some thoughts from each and every one of you guys, and I want to see. I've got my 4 kind of drawn out here of who I think will make it. But I kind of want to see if I can be talked into a team by the end of this. And every now and then it can happen on a show like this. But yeah.
Okay, Coby, your turn. Take it.
I got my list here, and I think y'all hit the nail on the head. It would be blasphemous to not put the 2-time defending national champions right there at the top of that list in Georgia. With everything they got going on, the talent they've brought in, of course, they got a new face at quarterback, but when you have the roster that they have, and also we'll dig in this a little bit more, the schedule that they have, I don't see a reason why they shouldn't at least be undefeated in the regular season. I think they can go into the playoff with 1 loss or undefeated as well. But I do have to put my Bama Crimson Tide up there. I think that we can bounce back as long as Nick Saban's at the helm. I think there's always a chance that they can be a playoff contender. But like Torrez said, like Tyler said, there's going to be some fresh faces. I like Florida State. I think they could very well be a contender. Of course, you got their Clemson in there, Ohio State and Michigan. And then also another Big Ten contender, me and Jackson are very high on, in Penn State. Penn State could be honestly one of the most intriguing teams going into this season. And then USC and, of course, Texas, and a little bit of honorable mentions. I'll put LSU in there. They won the West last year. They have a chance, and I think they have a better roster and a better team this year. UCLA and Washington. I think those are some pretty underrated picks. I think that they could very well be contenders. They definitely have the offense to be able to do it. We might be able to see some new, fresh faces in the playoff.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm looking for is like, are we going to have any fresh new faces this year? Because think about it. A Pac-12 team has not made it since Washington made it in 2016 and lost to Alabama. And then before that, it was Oregon that made the national title game, lost to Ohio State that year. That's the only two Pac-12 teams that have ever made it. USC was on the cusp of it last year and just got railed by Utah in that Pac-12 title game. Like, I think the Pac-12 probably has like, I'll say 4 contenders. I'll put UCLA and Oregon State as a dark horse contender. I just don't want to go ahead and throw Oregon State. Oh, you're a playoff contender. Like there's a path there if DJU hits the ceiling, but like I think Oregon, USC, Washington, I think those are like legitimate contenders at the top of the conference. Like don't forget about Utah. Like everybody in the Pac-12. Like, don't forget about the team that's won it 2 years in a row, and we'll see them on Thursday night against Florida. And also, a lot of talk about the Big 12. Oklahoma, and until last year, Oklahoma was the only Big 12 team that had ever made the playoff. Like TCU got in last year, but it was predominantly run by Oklahoma. I'm kind of looking to see if there's a switch up there. Like, okay, is it Texas now? And then, I think at the top, you got to come back to Georgia. Like I don't see them losing in the regular season. If that happens, whether it's LSU, whether it's Alabama or somebody else, shockingly, even if they lose in the SEC title game, I just don't see a 12-1 Georgia team getting left out. So, does anybody have like a team that we haven't discussed that you see contending for the playoff just before we get into it? Like, is there somebody out there?
A weird team that I would put up there, I might throw Wisconsin in that mix.
Okay.
Just their running game, their defense, the way they play is the way you beat a team like an Ohio State or like a Michigan. You run the ball. They got a running back that can carry the ball 40 times a game, and he can get you 5 yards of carry. He's one of the best running backs in the country. And then their defense is always going to be solid. I think Wisconsin has a fair chance, especially on their side of the Big Ten. I think that they could easily do it if they end up winning the Big Ten.
Tyler?
Another one you can bring up, whether we like it or not, their name is always going to be in the mix. And they actually do. I mean, I'm sitting here, I pulled up the schedule real quick just so I could have a little overview of them. But, they actually do have some talent they got to go against this year. But one that's always nagging there, Notre Dame. That's one that they're always going to be. They got the legacy. They got the name. They're always going to be in the mix, I feel like.
Yeah. Would y'all be willing to throw A&M in there?
No, absolutely
not. Well, dang, Coby, you took mine out then. That was my second one.
I was waiting for somebody to say it.
I'm willing to bring him up.
I don't know if I can do it.
Torrez, go ahead.
No, I agree, man. I was going to say my dark horse was Texas. I think they got early on in the schedule is a little favorable. I say their first 3 games, Miami could be a tough one, depending on what Miami we see. But after that, I mean, they have a big opportunity having to play Alabama at home. They do got to go on the road to play Tennessee. They also got to go on the road to Ole Miss and on the road to LSU. But if you want to talk about a schedule, if they can come through this schedule with potentially 1 loss, yeah, we could see, or maybe 2 losses. Obviously we've never seen a 2-loss team, but a good 2-loss team that has beating, top tier opponents always has a case, a la, Auburn, or who's a two-loss team not too long ago that had another
Georgia
chance.
had a case that one year. I mean, they had a case.
Or Penn State.
Alabama talking about Bama last year.
Alabama, that's right. Penn
State
haven't
had that 2-loss team yet, so that's the only thing that makes me kind of worried about it. And I do have them currently with 2 losses.
If Auburn would have beat Georgia SEC championship, they would have been the first 2-loss team. They would have made it.
Let me ask y'all this: what team has the potential that even if they walk away from the regular season with 2 losses, who would have the best case to making the playoff? Because I personally think it's got to be one of those Big Ten teams between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
I was actually going to say LSU. All right, say they lose to Florida State, and then
An early Florida State, a week one Florida State.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Florida State wins the ACC, and then they get upset by A&M at the end of the year. But they have a win over Alabama. They got wins over Ole Miss, Auburn, and they win the West again. And then they beat an undefeated number 1 Georgia team. Yeah, that to me is great. And I think you can make the same case for Alabama. Say they lose to Texas week 2, and then I don't know, maybe they lose to Tennessee again. But then they have wins over LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, and then they beat an undefeated Georgia. A 2-loss Alabama team probably will have a good chance to get in. But it also depends on what's around you. Like if you've got a lot of undefeateds or 1-loss conference champions with like good losses, it's still going to be really hard to get in there. But like to me, LSU and Alabama are teams I could see losing twice, but having a case to get in at the end.
Yes, I agree with you on that one, Jackson. You know, you're looking at the overall case of like I feel like if there's anybody that's going to have a really good chance, it's going to probably. I mean, we already know it's probably going to be an SEC team having a chance for 2 losses to make the playoffs, mainly because of the scheduling. I mean, a lot of these teams. I mean, look at LSU. Like you said, LSU they're playing a lot of ranked teams. Texas A&M they're playing a lot of ranked teams. Heck, even Alabama they're playing a lot of ranked teams. So to play all these different ranked teams and depending on how these teams do with their schedule as well that they play, even if they come up short, that helps their case. So, it's valid, very valid.
And I think having a 2-loss team like, okay, go back to that Auburn team. One of their losses was a non-conference game to Clemson, who finished number 1 in the playoff standings that year. Like losing a really tough non-conference game and then running a gauntlet of a conference schedule, to me, that's where you're going to look at a 2-loss team again, which is why I was thinking about LSU, Alabama.
That LSU fits that mold very well.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. And then same for Texas. Like if Texas loses to Alabama and then maybe Baylor or somebody gets them a couple weeks later, but then they run through the rest of the Big 12 pretty dominantly, like maybe them, but the Big 12 is obviously not as strong as the SEC, so you're going to have less of a case. And I'll throw in as my dark horse. I know Coby took mine with he mentioned UCLA earlier. Somebody that hasn't been mentioned yet that I think could do what TCU did. I don't think they are a national title contenders. If they get to the playoff, they could win it. But if Kansas State somehow snuck in at number 4, like maybe 12-1, win the Big 12, I think that's going to be a really, really good football team this year. I think they have the defense to win close games. Like losing Deuce Vaughn is obviously like you're not going to replace him. But I think replacing star running backs is easier than replacing quarterbacks or star defensive players.
Who is that quarterback now, right?
He started near the end of last year. He took over for Adrian. When Adrian Martinez got injured, he come in, and he was a lot better than him. Like he was legitimately good. And they made the mistake of putting Adrian Martinez back in, and they lost to Texas. If Will Howard's in that game, I don't think they lose to Texas last year.
He's a stud.
They could be a team that you're sitting there, we're arguing about, well, they're not really that good, but they're 12-1. How could you leave them out? And then they lose by 30 points to Georgia. So Kansas State is or whoever's number 1. Kansas State's a team that I think could be there in the end.
Yeah.
Has anybody else got any thoughts on dark horses or somebody we haven't mentioned yet?
Not that we haven't mentioned, I don't think.
The Kansas Jayhawks, baby.
I'm just waiting for you to say it. Kansas
America's team.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I don't know. I don't think they're necessarily a dark horse because they had a solid season last year. But what about potentially Tennessee?
Yeah, I was gonna bring them up.
I mean, they're not necessarily. I mean, they're in the running.
I don't really believe it, but
I guess here's a good way to talk about Tennessee. All right, say Georgia goes undefeated, wins the SEC. Say that's Tennessee's only loss. Is Tennessee in?
And they beat it. It would.
Yeah, I mean,
Alabama and A&M.
If you beat A&M, on the road,
that would mean they would be beating.
Because that same thing would have happened last year if they didn't fumble the bag against South Carolina. Like, their one loss being Georgia, but they beat Bama. I think they get in with one loss last year, to be honest with you.
To me, that's Tennessee's best case. Because, like, even at home, I just don't think they're beating Georgia at the end of the they're still going to probably be 2 touchdown dogs in that game. If you can at least but here's the thing is I don't think they can lose that game by like 35 points and get in. Like they need to show that, hey, Georgia's just really good, but we still should be in that 2 to 4 consideration. Like they're just that good.
It'll be interesting what Joe Milton does compared to what Hendon Hooker did against that Georgia defense. Because if Joe Milton is what we think or at least what I think he will be, I think he will be able to air it out. I think he'll be really, really good, but he needs to put a better performance on against Georgia this year than what Hendon Hooker did last year.
Yeah. I know the answer to everybody.
The defense has to show up too.
To this question for everybody, but is there, just to get it out of the way, is there any group of 5 contenders we see here, like a Cincinnati or anything? I don't think so, but I at least just wanted to cover our bases.
Nah, can't do it.
Wait, talking about like just they could maybe fight their way into it.
Yeah, they could get to that number 4. Like a lot to me, a lot of things would a lot of teams would have to lose. Like they would have to.
Yeah, I mean,
2 lost conference
in a crazy scenario. What is it's Tulane's one, right? Ain't they? I like Tulane.
What about Coastal
UTSA?
Carolina?
I was gonna say they played Tennessee in Knoxville. Like if they won that game, Tennessee won the SEC or something. Like I'm just throwing out scenarios. I at least just want to do that, but
because doesn't Coastal Carolina, they still got Grayson McCall at quarterback?
They play UCLA week 1, but again, I just don't think that's
yeah.
You would need UCLA to go like 11-1, win the Pac-12.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The group of 5 is losing all its best teams to the power, like UCF, Cincinnati, Houston just left. It's just getting weaker and weaker, and you're just not going to be able to make a run.
Yeah,
but I guess we've stalled long enough. I guess we'll go around and everybody will say their number 1 team, and we'll just go down 1, 2, 3, 4 if everybody's okay with that. Or cool with that. I guess we can just everybody go. All right, Tyler. I guess I'll let you start with this one. No,
just very anticlimactic.
Big number 1 on his jersey.
Yeah, number 1. Number 1. There you go. Yeah, UGA. I got to go with them. You know, I got to go with them. Even though we weren't picked to win the SEC yesterday on College Game Day, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. But I'll take
it in the media though.
I'm just saying, man. Don't say that people ain't counting us out when it's happening.
Granted, y'all only won the SEC once in the last 5 years.
True. But yeah, I got us finishing number 1. I see us finishing this thing out undefeated again this year. I like where we're at. Even with the cupcake schedule, which I know Coby's going to bring up, it is a cupcake schedule. No one's going to.
What's understood doesn't need to be explained.
It don't need to be explained, man. It don't need to be explained. And we all know it. We'll admit it. It is an easy schedule. And but that means the margin of error is slim. So I mean, obviously, if you drop one, boom, you know that could be the end of it right there, obviously. But there's really no excuses. So yeah, I have them pulling it out. Going undefeated, heading into the college football playoffs. So I'll go with them number 1.
All right, Torrez, who's your number 1?
Well, I'm going with the same way, man. I'm going with Georgia. Yes, look, I will agree. Yes, I know our schedule is very favorable. I'm not going to sit here and deny that and try to make a case it's not. But I do feel like there's some sleeper games that I feel like if we easily can overlook, very similar to what happened with Missouri. Now, granted, an SEC team on the road at night, those are tough games. And I feel like there's a few games like that for us. You know, I know we're really good, but, that game against Ole Miss, I feel like we're going to beat Ole Miss. But, those type of games where Ole Miss come in and maybe hot, depending on how their season went. They already ranked number 22 right now. Obviously, Tennessee, as everybody says, like, yes, that's going to be our toughest game on the schedule. But I wouldn't sleep too much on South Carolina, man. I feel like
South Carolina plays y'all hard every year.
Yeah, I feel like now. Yes, we went.
It was a tough 5 minutes last year.
Yeah, that was. We'd be like 48-7. It was a
that one was
last year, but
they normally do play hard,
and we do got them at home. But
let me ask y'all this while we're on the subject: are y'all scared of the Florida Gators at all this year?
No, I have them finishing bottom of the SEC.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have them at the very bottom.
See,
anytime. Well, I don't care. Nobody say. Anytime we play Florida, I get a little nervous because I know anything. I always
Graham Mertz, bro. I mean, you go and look at the roster. It is putrid. That team is just. Oh God.
I'm gonna clip that and say Torrez admits he's scared of Graham Mertz.
No, I'm not necessarily scared, but I understand like the risk sometimes. Like there's certain games on here. I'm like, man, we're gonna mop the floor with them. We'll mop the floor with.
I mean, y'all are
like Missouri. Missouri,
Super Bowl.
Yeah,
we are. Yeah, we are.
I mean, we're gonna catch their best game. I will say that, and it could be a closer game, but I'm not gonna sit here and doubt that we're gonna win that one. We'll win it. It might be the ugliest game you see. It could be another Missouri, like you said, but I think we win it in the end.
And I also feel like that game on the road against Auburn is a little bit of a push. So
yeah,
Auburn's always picking up some momentum, dog. I don't know what it is. I don't know what Hugh Freeze is cooking with down there, but they look like they're picking up momentum, at least in recruiting.
It is in recruiting, yeah. They're picking up momentum.
Yeah, but even there, like with just the Graham Mertz conversation, I think he's a little better than Mertz. But is Peyton Thorne beating Georgia? Like, are we
no,
we're not saying that
they're not there yet, but the wheel is turning. Like, you know, that one's starting to pick it up, like he's saying. They're going to end up being a thorn in everybody in the SEC side. And you can mark that one down.
Yep.
All right, Coby, who's number one? Who's going to be number one in December?
Got to go ahead and throw the Alabama Crimson Tide right there at the top. Hear me out. If there was going to be one team that could knock off Georgia at the top of the pedestal, I think it will be Alabama, and I think it will come in that SEC championship game. Granted, Bama could very well lose one game this season. It could be early on against Texas. We're still trying to figure out that quarterback competition. I got faith in Jalen Milroe. I also have faith in Ty Simpson, but I have a feeling I don't like going into a season without solidifying a starter at quarterback. I just think that causes problems. So if we were to slip in week 2 against Texas, so be it. But I think that we can run the gauntlet in the SEC with our SEC games. I think we can ultimately end up beating Georgia in the SEC championship. I think Georgia goes undefeated. But Bama, I think they will be a little bit more battle-tested given their schedule than Georgia. I think they will be able to be thrown in that fire and beat Georgia. And plus, they're going to be out for blood. Everybody knows how it is whenever you get a pissed off Alabama team and Nick Saban at the helm. I think that Bama can easily be number one.
Well, I also have an SEC team undefeated, number one for me, but it's neither Georgia and it's not Alabama. It's LSU.
On brand.
They win the SEC. They have the best quarterback in the SEC. They have the best defensive player in the country. They have maybe the best defensive tackle in the country, but he got suspended for – I don't even –
I didn't see that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Why did he get suspended? I saw he got suspended.
Him and Keyshawn Butte had an autograph session last summer.
You are talking about Mason Smith, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 1 week before NIL became official. Like it became legal. It was literally like weeks before.
Dang,
because he was injured last year, they couldn't suspend him. So they have to suspend him for a game this year.
And it's going to be week 1 against Florida State.
It's legal now. So he's not going to play.
I did not know he wasn't going to be playing against Florida State. Wow.
Yeah, that's a game.
That's going to be a little bit of a hit.
Brian Kelly said they tried to schedule a game this past weekend so they could just suspend him for that.
Oh, wow.
No, is he serious about that? Like, is that completely serious?
Yeah, he's standing on it. Yeah.
That's funny. I can't blame him. I cannot knock him for that, but that is funny. Wow.
But anyway, I think they have the best receiver room in the SEC. I think them and Georgia are tied for the best offensive line in the SEC. Like, there's just the secondary is the only thing that scares me. I think I
gotta go. Bama's up there, man. Bama's up there. I'd probably put Bama's over LSU's.
Yeah, I'll take LSU's. So the secondary.
Hey, nice little quick response. I like it.
The secondary scares me the most, and just playing a team like Florida State so early with so many offensive weapons, like they could easily lose that game next week. And then obviously games against Alabama, A&M, they could slip up somewhere. But I just really think they really started this last year, and I think their roster only got better through the portal and recruiting. Like, I just love everything about this LSU team. So that's why they're number one for me. And I'll go ahead and start our number 2 conversation because I know I'm going to be the only one here. There is going to be a Big Ten team that goes undefeated, and there is going to be a Big Ten team that is number 2 in the playoff rankings, and it's going to be Penn State. Penn State is not going to lose a game in the regular season this year. If Drew is that guy, I dare you to show me a weakness on this team. They have arguably the best running back duo in the country. The one weakness I may point out is the receivers. You know, losing Parker Washington and Mitchell Tinsley, those are not easy guys to replace. But I think they got some guys capable of stepping up, especially at tight end. They have the best offensive line in the Big Ten. They got the number 1 offensive tackle for the draft next year. He's going to be the first lineman pick next year. Chop Robinson and that defensive line, they're going to absolutely create havoc and create pressure this year. They do lose Joey Porter in the secondary, but they have plenty of guys back there. There's just not a weakness in this team, and I think they haven't had a quarterback with this type of ceiling. Like, they've been winning games with Sean Clifford and Trace McSorley. Like, they're trotting them out there as a choice. Like, that's now you have a completely different type of
Yeah,
player.
I don't know much about this guy, so he's legit.
Well,
He's the real freaking deal. Like, he's probably better than the guy Clemson's walking out on week 1 and Cade Klubnik. Like, he's good.
Really?
He's good.
He was getting Josh Allen comparisons.
I like Klubnik too. That's
I'm always scared
of that guy.
Comparisons, but a lot of people around
two good running backs
around that program really think he's the real deal. I think he's going to be the reason they're number 2. I love everything about this team. So
wow,
I got Penn State number 2.
Let me ask you this: since we're on the topic of Penn State, is this do or die for James Franklin? Because this is the best roster he's had, and if he doesn't get over the hump this year, like, what do you think about it?
I'll say some doubts will definitely start to seep in. But remember, Alara will be back next year, so will Singleton and some of those other players. Because that's the thing, a lot of their team's still young, and they're recruiting at a top 10 level right now. I definitely think there's going to be some disappointment. But to me, if Alara shows he can be that guy, and if they lose close to Michigan and Ohio State, I still think that that's optimism. And again, I don't know that there's anybody that's going to do a lot better than James Franklin. Penn State's a good job, but it's not like you're going to go out and hire just anybody you want.
Yeah.
He's won a Big Ten title before. He wins double-digit games consistently. So I agree. I do think there is pressure on them this year, but I don't think it's like, okay, if you don't win the
Big SEC pressure, I feel like. It's not like, I feel he's garnered enough of a relationship with that fan base and with the people around that program. I think he's I'm not saying he's sitting pretty by any means, but I feel like he's gained enough of a little bit of a comfort, there. Like he can, he has a little leniency at his disposal.
Hire a coach that's been as successful as he that has as many double-digit win seasons, a conference title, and won New Year's 6 bowl games. You better find somebody that's going to do a better job, and you better find somebody that's going to please the fan base.
It's not guaranteed.
That's the thing. So
yeah,
I love this team going in though.
Okay.
So anybody can take it from here though.
I guess I'll start with my number 2. I got another wild take. Give me the Florida State Seminoles at number 2. I think they end up going undefeated this year. I really like Florida State. I even told Jackson last year before the season started, like, this team, give them one more year, they're going to be it. And what they've done, like, we've seen them take advantage of the transfer portal era probably better than just about anybody. You got a Heisman contender in Jordan Travis. You got Trey Benson at running back. You got a stable of wide receivers in their own right, and Coleman, the transfer from Michigan State, and Johnny Wilson, the 6'7" powerhouse. Then you got guys like Jared Verse on that defensive line. I think Florida State goes undefeated. I think they end up beating Clemson. I like them to win the ACC as a whole. I think they would fit right in at number 2.
All right. I'm going to go with Michigan for number 2. I think they'll probably play. They're definitely going to play Ohio State once. They may end up playing them twice before it's all said and done. I don't have that belief, I guess, like Jackson does in Penn State just yet. I kind of want to see it before I kind of back it up with my words. But Michigan, they're the program. They've been getting there. They've been chipping at it. In the playoffs the past couple of years, just haven't been able to get over it. He's built the program pretty well. You got Corum coming back. They did lose some other pieces, through the draft and all, but he's been recruiting pretty well over there. Harbaugh has. So, it's not like they're going to lose all their depth that quickly. So I'll take them for number 2 here coming out of the Big Ten.
I like it. Me and Jackson asked whenever we started doing our conference previews, would y'all agree that Michigan probably has the least amount of questions around them, like, as a team going into this season? Like, I don't have a lot of questions about them at all. Like, we know who they are. We know what we're going to get, and they're going to be a pretty daggone good football team.
Got a good running back coming back. Got a solid offensive line that's, probably shouldn't have won the award for best offensive line the past couple of years, I might say, but they have been winning it. You're returning your quarterback right. The one question I do have, receiver-wise, I was real big on Bell. Yeah. I liked him a lot. I said in the draft, I was like, I don't know how that dude slipped that far. I felt like every time I watched a Michigan game, he was just popping off the screen, making huge, highlight reel plays. But that might be the one question mark. I think the defense is going to steadily, be pretty good, at least for Big Ten standards. And honestly, they may be able to work their way up to competing against the upper echelon talent of, say, like a Georgia, Alabama, something like that. So, yeah.
All right, Torrez, who's number 2? We've all picked a different one. Are you going to follow?
Yes, I am. I'm actually – it's still going to be in the Big Ten, but I'm going to Ohio State.
Ooh, my God.
Reason why I got Ohio State number 2, looking at their schedule mainly.
It's a tough schedule.
by the time they play Notre Dame, which is the 4th game of the season, Notre Dame probably is going to be already in the top 10. You know how that goes.
They will.
Notre Dame is currently number 13 right now. That's going to be a top 10 win.
Death, taxes, and Notre Dame in the top 10.
Yeah. No, right? Exactly. And they're probably going to be there, sadly, which is crazy. And with Notre Dame being there, going on the road to Notre Dame, beating Notre Dame early in the season, I think this is going to obviously help their case. And looking at the rest of their schedule, I mean, then they got to play Penn State at home, which is going to be a tough game, but I do think they get that done. Then they got to go on the road to Wisconsin, who's ranked number 19.
Yeah.
That is a tough schedule, but I feel like with Ohio State team, they have their receivers coming back with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emma and
Amiga Buka. They got some other guys too. Who else? Fleming.
Julian Fleming, yeah. They said Carnell Tate is showing up at fall camp right now. They said he's looking really, really good.
Yeah.
And then you got Michigan. Then you got Michigan at the end of the year, on the road. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw this on a limb. There's no way. I'm going to say no way, no how. I'm not saying that, but because I did predict Michigan potentially to beat Ohio State last year, but this year I don't see it happening. I don't see Michigan doing it 3 years in a row. Yes, I know Michigan is at home with this game, but they're not beating Ohio State three years in a row. Ohio State has dominated a game for a little bit of the past few years. And then, the last 2 years, Michigan, I think it's about time for Ohio State to get one. And I think this year will be year 4.
Does it worry you that, and I guess it's just for everybody, does it worry you that they haven't named a starting quarterback yet?
Well, that does kind of worry me a little bit.
I think it's Kyle McCord. I mean, I think they're –
Well, yeah, but why? Well, if it is, why not just name him?
Why the hesitancy? Yeah.
And again,
this is Ohio State. This is Ohio State. If it wasn't their basis, like they always got this quarterback. Yeah. It is kind of weird, like Jackson's saying that. Because
if the other kid is not as good as they thought he would be.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Or is Kyle McCord not as good as he's supposed to be, and Devin Brown's just hanging around because McCord's not taking it yet? Like, because when Dwayne Haskins left, it was Justin Fields is obviously going to be the guy. Yeah. That's the question. Mm-hmm. Fields left. Oh, it's C.J. Stroud. Nobody questioned whether it's going to be Stroud or not.
You're right.
Now it was supposed to be McCord, but now, I mean, like Ryan Day talked about it last week, they may just play both of them against Indiana in these first, because they got Indiana, Western Kentucky, and Youngstown State these first 3 weeks before they play
the trial run.
So I'm assuming you'll see both of them play in all those games. But
quarterback by committee.
Yeah, and that's just not a good thing.
I don't like that.
You're right. It's not. It's not. We literally see Jones County doing it. It's
Jones
not.
County, yeah, I hate that crap. I hate
Bama's in the same boat. And honestly, I want to go ahead and solidify the guy.
Seriously.
Show him you have faith in him so he will play better. Like if he's going in thinking, I'm starting this week, but next week I might not be starting, he's not going to play to his best. So I understand that aspect of it.
Well, I guess we'll just keep it going with Torrez. Who faces Ohio State in the playoff at number 3?
This is where I think it's a little bit get tough, but I do think we see 2 SEC teams in the playoffs, and obviously you could see one versus, obviously most of the time you see these playoff teams, they don't play each other the first time in the playoffs. So I'm going to go with LSU number 3. I do think LSU has a really good schedule for themselves this year to allow themselves to really make the playoffs. You did talk about that they have the best quarterback coming back in the SEC. You talked about all of their weapons. Now, from last year, maybe I haven't just done as much research. Obviously, I haven't. But Jayden Daniels did not impress me all that much last year. I don't know. He really couldn't throw the ball as well as the other cat that played in SEC championship game. Gus Meyer, that's right. So maybe I just saw that he's the number 2 leading candidate for the Heisman odds. I don't know. Something that shocked me. Maybe he has got exponentially better. But I do believe in this LSU team. They got a really good schedule. Obviously, they got some tough games coming up the forefront. I do think they go on the road and they do beat Alabama, and I do think they're gonna have a tough game against Texas A&M. But I feel like they might come out on the good side on that game, and I think we see 2 undefeated teams at SEC championship. The loser just dropped to 3.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Let me hear what y'all have to say here. I know the committee when they're picking these things, that it would be pretty safe to assume, Torrez, that you would have UGA and LSU in the SEC championship game, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So could you ever see a position where the committee would pick whoever lost the SEC championship game to be number 4 and basically just have a rematch of the SEC
like a
championship game?
back-to-back rematch.
Yeah, or would y'all think that they would automatically fix it to where it's not like that? Because I feel like they defer to the latter as opposed to going back to back. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they literally have that in the actual committee rules. They actually try to get away from rematches in the first round. They actually don't want rematches.
It's also a money thing. Like you want to see Georgia at number 1 play against a Penn State or a Michigan or somebody at number 4.
Then.
You know what I'm saying? You don't want to see 2 back-to-back games. So it's kind of like a little money grab, I feel like.
Well, I mean, just 2 years ago when Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC title game, Georgia could have dropped to 4, like if you thought about it. But one, I don't think they were really going to move Cincinnati above Georgia. And plus, people wanted to see Georgia, Alabama potentially rematch again. I don't think you want to have Cincinnati, Michigan.
Yeah.
Because I think
that was one of the things I saw when reading. There was a potential rematch. Ohio State and Michigan. That was who it was. Ohio State and Michigan last year, and literally the committee came out. I was reading multiple articles, but a lot of guys in the committee were saying that they venture away from rematches if necessary. Meaning, if there's an opportunity to put one team here because of their resume, and if they just played, obviously Michigan played Ohio State, so no need to have these 2 teams play each other because we already have the winner of that game. Obviously, it don't mean that that's going to be the same thing the second game, but we've already seen the forefront of that. Put this team to play another team, obviously put another team. That's why I said LSU and Georgia. I do feel like I can see both of these teams undefeated, and I said the loser of that, which for me, my loser is LSU, would just drop 3.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad I asked because I sure did not know that. That's awesome. I'm going to go with LSU as well for number 3 then. I did have it mixed up, but I'm glad I asked it. I was going to have them at 4, but yeah, I'll take them at 3 here. Same thing as Torrez. I actually do have LSU doing really good this year. I'm similar to Jackson, of course, not on his level of enthusiasm for it because I don't have them going fully undefeated and winning the SEC, but I do have them making it to it again and just coming up short. One question for y'all. The running back. We kind of talked about on our show. We don't really know a ton about these running backs for LSU now. What do y'all got to say on their running backs?
That's my biggest question about this team because honestly, if you think about it, name me a notable LSU running back past the Leonard Fournette, Darius Guys era. They have not had a
Edwards-Helaire.
Edwards-Helaire. That's right.
He hasn't done good in the NFL, really.
Was he a running back, or was he a product of a system that threw the ball 50 times a game?
Well, now I will say this: he looked very good in college. Obviously, I'm not going to let the recency, mess my opinion of him up because honestly, I'm not really big on him in the NFL. I've gone on the record on our show talking about it. I'm not huge on him in that aspect, but in college, dude was solid, man. Dude was like trucking folks.
I think he was a very versatile running back, but I'm talking about a true.
He was a first round
down running back. You know what I'm talking about? Like.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Guys was on a level of
more of a Swiss Army knife type of running back to me.
Yeah.
He was a first round draft pick.
He was, but Jackson, I saw you make a face when Coby said the running back thing. I want to know what you got to say here, man.
Well, to me, yes, would I like to have a very good running back or a dominant ground game? Yes, I just don't think it's required to win in college football.
Hey, UGA's in the same position here, baby, this year.
Exactly. UGA has good players, but it's been since Nick Chubb and Sony Michel since they've really had a dominant person on there. I don't consider
you're pretty right.
I don't think he was dominant or anything. So I just don't think. I think if you get enough production from it, that's there is a question mark there, but I just don't think it's going to be a requirement. They have explosiveness in the passing game. They have the receivers in the offensive line. I think whoever they put back there behind that offensive line is going to have success.
Okay.
That's the way
you answer my question. I like it. Yeah, I'll take them for number 3 here. And I have them having a good season, so that's my number 3. Go ahead, Coby.
At my number 3, I will put the Georgia Bulldogs. Like I said, we all know how good this team will be.
I'm going to change my jersey out.
I do think that they win. They go undefeated in the regular season, but I think their only loss is to Alabama in the SEC championship. And that one loss, I think, would put them right there at number 3 behind the undefeated Florida State, behind the number 1 Alabama. So that's the only reason I put them at 3. They could very well easily be 1 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can literally copy and paste those comments. I've got Georgia number 3. It's same as Torrez. I think LSU, Georgia play each other, SEC title. I just got LSU winning. I think Georgia's going to roll through the regular season, and I think them and Penn State, I think, would be an interesting bowl game. But
and there are some questions about Georgia this year. Obviously I brought up the running backs. Being down with that, we're going to have to rely on some guys that are walk-ons, this year, which is something crazy. But
y'all just had a walk-on win you 2 national titles.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey.
And we've been able to get some good talent in there as far as the walk-on. So, I mean, you guys are going to be seeing names like Cash Jones pop up a good bit this year. You're going to be seeing Savon Clark. Might be even seeing a little Lenneth Whitehead from Tennessee coming in. Hopefully not that much because I'm not too huge on him. But
is Branson Robinson going to make that jump, though?
He's not. Remember, he's out for the season now, man.
Are you serious? I did not know that.
Torrez broke it to me on the show the other day. He's out for the season.
And
now we're relying on Andrew Paul.
We're
relying on Roderick Robinson.
Wow.
So yeah. We might be experimenting with Dylan Bell coming out of the backfield.
So a true running back by committee.
True.
You're seeing how busy a life is of a high school coach right there.
What?
You said what?
Hey, he said you're seeing how busy a life is of a high school coach.
Yeah.
I
just didn't see it because I didn't have the Bleacher Report notifications on. So I'm glad Torres told me. But there's that, and then there's the defensive line concerns a little bit this year. Obviously not having a Jalen Carter. I'm being dead serious. We're gonna have to. Hey, I think we're gonna be solid enough, but we're not gonna be at the level that we've been in the past, like where we've had those guys like Trevon Walker, Jalen Carter, Jordan Day. He's naming them right now, man. We don't have guys on that level, but they can do good.
Michael Williams,
he's going to be good. He is going to be good.
You haven't even named my biggest concern about Georgia, and the one that should be your biggest concern.
Let's
hear it. Like
Bob. Oh God, I don't know.
Look, I'm not saying Mike Bobo's bad. But I remember all the grief Georgia fans used to give him.
Georgia fans hated him.
I know they did.
We hated him. I agree.
Yeah, but like that's my biggest thing. Is like now they're all like, oh well, we just promoted him within it. We're confident in it. Like y'all hated him when he left. Right.
I think
he hasn't played an offense in over a decade, and I'm not Todd Monken, I just think it was criminally underrated. His game plans and the way he played formation put guys
underrated him.
Well, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. I agree with that. I get
it doesn't feel like he does to me, and I just like Mike Bobo. Like it's gonna be. I'm not saying y'all are gonna go to play an offense like Iowa. I'm just saying when you get in the playoff, like I thought Monken was a real advantage. Coach the offense. Now when you get playing some playoff teams, now the pressure's on. You're not calling plays, to beat Kentucky or Missouri. Now it's to beat LSU or Ohio State or Michigan. I'm just kind of anxious to see that. And I just feel like Georgia could have went out and hired literally anybody they wanted to at offensive coordinator, and they chose Mike Bobo. I'm just saying
it will be interesting, but you got to think he was sitting underneath him as like an analyst for a year. He was able to see his stuff. They were able to make sure he picked up on everything. I mean, it is a little bit of a mystery. I want to kind of see it myself too. I want to see how it is week 1 and go from there. But I mean, honestly, I think he's been able to pick up enough. And Kirby is a micromanager. As far as he's got to have things a certain way. I feel like at the end of the day, he is the ultimate guy. Like for that, he's going to be the one that makes the calls as far as things go. I mean, obviously, he's not going to be calling offensive plays, but if things ain't going the way he wants it, man, he's going to make sure he switches things up. I think so.
I'm just very interested to see if Georgia struggles early on in their season. You got a new quarterback. I wonder who the Georgia fan base is going to throw under the bus first, Mike Bobo or Carson Beck. I'm waiting for it.
It'll be Bobo. It'll be Bobo. It'll be Bobo. It'll be Bobo.
All right. Real quick.
So
Jackson, number 4. Who's your number 4?
It's Michigan. I debated, I thought about Texas. I just can't. I think Texas wins the Big 12. I just can't trust them to go 11-1 or 12-0.
Yeah,
it's just hard to get there. And after watching I wasn't going to have USC anyway. Watching their defense last night, back half of that schedule, there's no way they're not losing 2 games. Like the back half of their schedule, they're playing Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Utah. 5 of their last 6 games are against those teams. There is no way they're not losing 2 of those games if they play defense like that. So Kansas State, as I mentioned, I thought was a team that could be in there. But to me, Michigan is just a better team than all them. I think their only loss is going to be to Penn State. I'm along with y'all. I'll keep it short and simple. I don't have a ton of concern about Michigan. I think the one thing they have to do better is passing game explosiveness. Like they have to be able to create bigger plays against teams like TCU. That it was a problem. Like TCU just had a bunch of big plays against them, and you saw it a little bit, but J.J. McCarthy has to get better throwing the ball downfield. They got to have some guys step up at receiver. I think Tyler was right to point that out. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Michigan because, again, I just don't have many concerns about them like I have against Texas, USC, Florida State, Clemson. So,
okay.
Yeah. At my number 4, this is going to make Jackson very happy. I'm going to put Penn State right there at number 4. I'm buying into the hype. I think also if you look at the way their schedule plays out, I think that they are in the best situation to where if they lose to either Ohio State or Michigan, I think they're safe. Like, I feel like they can be a one-loss non-conference playoff team. I feel like that's how their season could end up going. Say they lose to Ohio State, but they end up beating Michigan or vice versa. They still have a chance to make the Big Ten Conference Championship and win it. And even if they don't, and they still have a win against Ohio State or Michigan, I feel like they can still be a one-loss team right there in the playoff.
Got a question for you. So you're gonna have 2 non-conference champions in the playoff in your playoffs, Coby?
Yeah. Because think of it this way: it's exactly what Jackson said. Do you trust a USC or a Texas? Because those are who I got winning the Pac-12 and the Big 12.
Interesting. It's just rare. It's just rare to see. When the last time we've had 2 non-conference champions?
Well, also, when's the last time we had not just 2 teams from the same conference, but from what it sounds like, y'all got 2 teams from just 2 different conferences making it. I don't see that happening at all.
Not so fast. Not so
Ohio
fast.
State, TCU didn't win their conferences.
But
Kansas State won.
Right.
it's true. Take that back. That is true. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But like I said, when's the last time we've seen 2 teams from 2 different conferences just make the playoffs? So it's only the Big Ten and the SEC making the playoff. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so number 4, Longhorn Nation. We're back.
Wow. I did not think you were going to go that way.
Yeah. When Jackson brought it up, I went with him. So, yeah, I mean, I've talked with Jackson about it just through text. We've went over it on our show. I've got Texas having a big win early on in the season, like you kind of mentioned, against Alabama. I've got them. I mean, they got a toughest schedule. I mean, going against Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, TCU. The degree of difficulty is there. I think they end up maybe dropping 1. I can't really honestly tell you who they end up dropping it to. The way you are talking about it,
do you think their best case would be dropping to Bama but beating the rest of the Big 12? Like you lose the non-conference, but you go undefeated in your conference?
It could be, but that Bama win could be the signature win that the committee looks at to be like, you know what, I remember that. That's why I'm going to bump them up here. That could be the big one. And that's at Tuscaloosa. That's their revenge. Yeah. I've got them making it this year, going number 4. That'll be UGA, Texas in the opening round. Go ahead, Torrez.
I like it.
Well, the funny thing is, you know what? You're so right, Jackson. I solely forgot about last year. But after going back thinking about last year as well, a bunch of those conference championship games didn't mean anything, besides TCUs and who else really meant some Michigans. Like not a lot of those, and which was a rare case for us because we knew, if all this team win, then ain't nobody else really got a chance because Tennessee had faltered their chances and Alabama with their 2 losses and like all these teams with their 2 losses. There was a lot of 2-loss teams that potentially could have had a chance last year. And seeing that, I don't think we're going to have that this year. I think some of these conference championship games are going to be a little bit more meaningful. And one conference we hadn't seen in the last 2 years, I'm going to go with one of the ACC champions. But now y'all going to be like, oh, wait a minute. My pick for this was going to be Florida State. All right. But I'm going to have a slash. Obviously,
I'm going to have an asterisk next to it.
A slash.
Clemson. Got to do these conditions.
Okay. You're right. Because look, it's going to come down to that September 23rd game. And obviously the game is being played in Clemson. All right. Now, I'm going to start off with Florida State first. Florida State got to play LSU first. Let's just say I do think LSU wins that game. First loss, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think we're going to see the improvements of Florida State, but I think they still lose like a nail-biter. All right? Florida State runs the table. They go on the road and beat a Clemson team. And you're about to see the reason why I say Clemson, because you're going to see Clemson's schedule. And they run it through, go all the way through, beat Miami, beat Florida, beat all everybody else. Okay, boom. They got 1 loss in winning the ACC championship. If we talk about LSU, who they say they are, and their only loss is to a potential number 2 and number 1 ranked team, and they win that conference, I like my chance with Florida State jumping in as a conference champion. Now, with Clemson on the other hand, reason why I said Clemson got to play Florida State. Then they got to play Notre Dame at home. Then they got to play ranked North Carolina. All right. And if South Carolina steps up a little bit, that South Carolina game could potentially mean something. That's potentially 4 ranked teams on their schedule. If I'll be honest, if Clemson beats Florida State, I guess sometimes they struggle with Syracuse. But if they beat Florida State, the Notre Dame game at home, the Clemson game at home, they might run the table and could potentially be undefeated. Like going to the ACC championship game. So an undefeated ACC champ, even though they're ranked 9 now, I don't see how they get left out. So that's why I had the Florida State. But that Clemson-Florida State game will be the difference. ACC champion is my number 4. I think it's either Florida State or Clemson. That'll get the number 4 ranking.
I like it.
All right. Here at the end of the show, we've revealed our playoff teams. I'll start with Torrez. All right. Who's both playoff games and national champion and your Heisman?
Ooh, the Heisman is really interesting. Okay, so I got Georgia playing, obviously, ACC champion. I think they mock the floor with either Florida State or Clemson. I like that matchup big time. My number 2 and number 3 is Ohio State versus LSU. Top tier game. I really enjoy it. But I am going to – that's going to be a really interesting game. But I am going to lean LSU in that one. I'm going to go LSU. We probably will see a rematch, LSU and Georgia in the national championship. I feel like they're just so cliche because we've seen it so many times with 2 SEC teams, but make a difference, prove us otherwise.
Yeah. Mine's UGA, Texas. I got UGA beating Texas, moving on to the championship game. Then I got LSU going against Michigan. That one, honestly, I think it will be a good. I mean, both games I think are going to have some good stuff. That's 4 good teams, man. I'm interested in seeing the storylines and everything with that if it were to happen. But LSU, Michigan, oh man, it would be tough. I want to lean LSU, but I think I don't know, man. Harbaugh's been on this thing. He's been doing the beat Georgia drills and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I think maybe he gets over that hump, getting past the first round. He makes it to the title. I got to go with Georgia in the title against Michigan. So there you
go. For me, I got Alabama versus Penn State at that 1-4 spot. I got Alabama winning it, making it back to the national championship. Now I got Florida State versus Georgia, and I've had to think about this for a long time. Don't hate me for it, but I'm going Florida State. Hear me out. It's not because I don't think Georgia is more talented. I think they have a more talented roster, but Tyler likes to use this logic a lot, so I'm going to use this logic. Florida State has more proven playmakers right now on their team. So before this season starts, I think that Florida State has the proven talent to be able to beat a team like Georgia. Give me Alabama, Florida State in the national championship. Give me Alabama coming back to their dynasty roots.
Interesting. Well, I've got LSU beating Michigan, and I've got Georgia beating Penn State. I got the all-SEC rematch, which I'm sure is what everybody in the world would want to see. I'm going to go LSU. Like, I'm not going to sit here, hype them up, and then pick them to lose the national game. I think it's going to be a great game. I really do think the defensive playmakers in terms of Harold Perkins, Mason Smith, and I think that secondary is going to be solidified by the end of the year. I think that's going to be the strength. I think the best chance to get LSU is get them early before that secondary gets locked down. But, yeah, give me LSU and Georgia and give me LSU to win it. And I really struggle to pick a Heisman winner because guys that are going to put up the stats and be in the playoff conversation. Like, go back to the start of the playoff. Only 2 players won the Heisman and were not in the playoff, and that was Lamar Jackson and last year Caleb Williams. I think you got to at least be in the hunt. I'm going with a real dart throw off the board. Give me Drew Allard to win the Heisman this year. If Penn State is undefeated and gets in the playoff, there's a reason why, and he's going to get recognized for it. So that's my reason there.
For me, I'm going to have to go – I think Caleb Williams repeats. I mean, there is no question he is the best player in the country, and it's a different feel. Because don't get me wrong, I think when Bryce Young won the Heisman, I don't think that he didn't have the same hype going into last season, or maybe that was just because Alabama didn't have the hype. But either way, there were still a lot of other people that could have won the Heisman other than Bryce. So it's a little bit of a different feel. This year, there is no different field. There is no question of who the best player is in the country, and that is Caleb Williams. I think he puts up the stats, and I think USC at least has a successful enough season for him to be the Heisman. I think he repeats.
I'm trying to think who was going against Bryce Young that last year. Stroud and
CJ Stroud,
wasn't he? See, Aiden Hutchinson finished second, I'm pretty sure, didn't he?
That was Will Anderson.
I was about to say, I feel like we were all pretty high on Bryce Young. I don't know. I felt like that was the best Bama team up to that date. I liked what y'all had, and I liked Bryce Young. For me,
like Bryce Young last year, because nobody thought Bryce Young was going to repeat last year. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as Coby. Caleb, it's hard to go against Caleb Williams. I know it's chalk, it's boring. The highlight stuff's already starting up. We just saw it yesterday. The offense is built around him. Lincoln Riley's a genius when it comes to that stuff. Are we just talking about who we got to win or a dark horse?
You can throw a dark horse. You got to
dark horse. I put it on him. I already put the money on him. Carson Beck. I already did it. I already did it. Put a little money on him.
Torrez, Torrez, please tell me you're not on that same boat.
I'm not on that boat, buddy.
I think I don't think he's legitimately going to win it. What I do though, I think he might could do enough to get in that top 4 and maybe pull off some type of thing. I think so much weight is going to be put on him as far as the offense goes, especially now that we're down to the running backs that we are. We got the weapons in the pass game to do it. We got the offensive line to do it. He's going to have to air that sucker out, and I think he's going to be able to do it. He's a better passer, I think, than Stetson Bennett was. Obviously, he doesn't have the legs to match Stetson's, but a lot's going to have to ride on him. And going through an undefeated season, riding it to a college football playoff, I think he could be a guy that gets an invite to New York. So that's why I'm going with it. Go ahead, Torrez.
I'm gonna tell you this. I was riding Stetson Bennett last year, and I didn't care what nobody said. I was riding him Heisman. So everybody was calling me crazy, but if we had a little competition, we probably would have had one Heisman.
Yeah.
What it is.
We'll put Bama in the playoffs. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, don't get me
you want the competition? I mean,
don't get me started. But man, I'm gonna go with Coby on this one as well. Caleb Williams. The schedule is very favorable, and you gotta remember, man. It's sometimes the Heisman. Yes, you have to win the games. You gotta have the team, and I feel like USC is gonna be one of those teams that will probably be in their Pac-12 championship. A team that we need to be also considering for potential playoffs if they run the table as well. But the USC is an offensive. They throw the ball every play almost. So, I mean, he's going to have these absurd numbers. I mean, look, even though their defense was trash against San Jose State, the score was 56-28.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing for him.
It's a good thing for him. That's what I'm saying.
Chunking that thing up.
He's going to have to keep running the yards up and the touchdowns up. So he's going to have these type of games every single week, and it's going to be hard for guys. Like you say, for instance, like a Carson Beck, if he was in contention. Let's say a Carson Beck's in contention. If Carson Beck is beating, we know how Kirby is. If they're up 30-something, we're running the ball for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So he's not going to have that same opportunity as Caleb Williams, who's going to continue to keep throwing. So I'm going with Caleb Williams as well, and I think they have a solid season.
The formula's there for him. It's there.
Definitely.
Man, that was a lot of fun, you guys. We're coming up right up here at the end of it. Any thoughts from Tyler and Torrez, our guests here, before we get out of here?
I know you wanted to talk a little bit about, I mean, we're too late on it, but week 0 thoughts. I mean, we kind of discussed it, but
UMass is going to the playoff.
Yeah. I mean,
reaction.
USC looked pretty good offensively.
Notre
Dame's offense looked good. So
we're good, man.
Not too much to talk about week 1. I mean, we talked about it briefly. There's like maybe two, 3 good games you can maybe line up there. Maybe
LSU, State, South Carolina, North Carolina.
At least I ain't got to watch a smoke show like a Georgia-Oregon week 1. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, but you gotta watch Georgia UT Martin. Come on, man.
There you go.
Next week you get to watch Georgia Ball State.
Oh, yeah. Come on, bro. Add them up.
Who's Colorado playing week 1? It's they have
ECU. That's going to be a good one.
So I kind of do want to see. I just want to see what Colorado looks like. I just want to see what Colorado. It's not going to be a great game, I don't think, but seeing what TCU looks like now with all the pieces that have left, seeing what Colorado looks like with Deion in town. That's it.
We made a prediction last show. I said Colorado gets at least 6 wins.
Crazy.
See, I'm on the Deion train. I'm right. I'm on the Deion train. I really am.
3-9's coming. 3-9. It's on the way.
It's gonna be tough.
That's gonna do it for this show today. I'm sure all of our picks will be correct. We'll revisit them later in the year. But go listen to the TnT podcast. Fantastic. Those guys do a fantastic job. They're going to be on with us later. Make sure to go follow us on social media. We had a lot of fun here. Appreciate you guys coming on. But that is Torrez. That is Tyler. That is Coby. I'm Jackson. And the Goal Line